Alright, I'm going to do some initial testing on some assembled consoles that I have. I just kind of have a big stack off behind me of consoles that I've assembled, and I think all of them are going through their very first round of testing after assembly, which I guess according to my notes, I assembled these consoles quite a while ago. It looks like the first thing I did after I assembled them was put them through a battery test. So we'll see kind of how the actual components are. The shape that they're in, a lot of this stuff I assume is in good shape, but I actually don't know. For instance, like the shoulder buttons, I don't know if they're good. I don't know if the SD card slot's good. I know the cameras are good. At least they boot. I know the microphone at least works. I know the screens work because those are usually the things that I pay very close attention to. I assume the touchscreen works, so there's just a lot of for the very first test, there's a lot of things I don't know 100%. I'm gonna turn it on and kind of look at the screen. It looks like the top screen is like kind of a little more red tint. Kind of a, I don't want to say it's a crazy difference, but just because I look at so many consoles. Oh, this is an LL. So this is a Japanese console. It is completely in Japanese. Let me turn on my light. So it is running, I'm going to write this down, version 1.4.4J. I really need to see if I can find change logs for these versions, because I actually don't know the difference between all these versions. Okay. So since this is kind of initial testing, I'll be going through just a little column of tests right here. I may not explain them super thoroughly. I'll save that for when I'm doing the final testing. But I'll try and highlight them as I go. I just don't want to spend too much time sort of saying a thing that I've been saying for what feels like years. So I'll just kind of talk as I go. So I did the motherboard power board, which was just seeing if the console turns on, makes it to the main menu, and opens up the settings application. So the next is the tactile buttons, which I just slotted in my R4 card, and I'll be just checking all the face buttons and the shoulder buttons. So the face buttons I'm usually not worried about, the ABYX, D-pad, start select. The ones I pay special attention to are the shoulder buttons. Those tend to have problems more often than not. Not entirely sure why. I think it's just because of how that switch design is. It's kind of... I think it might trap moisture, and the corrosion just eats away at the contacts and makes it so the buttons don't respond or are sort of like somewhat faulty or intermittent in their response where they'll sometimes misclick. So all the face buttons were good. I'm just sort of clicking around the R button. So the button is rectangular, so I press the left side of the button, the right side of the button. I just kind of strobe back and forth, just doing a steady rhythm to see if that light matches my pace. And I'll do slow inputs. And it looks like this R button's good. I do run through these tests 3 times. And it's quite possible that I just missed something, but hopefully I have enough built-in redundancies to catch different issues. Like there was an R button I had an R button in one console that didn't respond to soft touches, so like I would press it to its actuation point, like where you actually hear the click, but the button doesn't respond. But it would respond if you pressed it just a tiny bit more. So when I'm just doing these rapid clicks like this, it's like, oh yeah, it responds just fine, but in actuality, it was not responding at the point where it should be responding. So all those buttons checked out. Very happy with the performance of the shoulder buttons. Next is the touchscreen. So I have another application for that turns the bottom screen into a drawing pad. Ooh, it looks like I need to calibrate this thing. It's a little off. You can tell because the edge of my screen is right there. I'm just going to do that just to be as thorough as I can. So shortcut into the touchscreen calibration, it's holding start and select and the shoulder buttons while powering on the console. This would be if your touchscreen is having a very hard time working and you can't get into the touchscreen calibration natively, which you have to do through the settings using the touchscreen. Which seems like kind of a design flaw if you can't navigate the settings menu with the D-pad and the A button, but, you know, I guess they had the program in a shortcut to make it so you can calibrate without the touchscreen. That's a lot better. So what I do is I draw a perimeter around the touchscreen, looking for any like erratic inputs or like dead zones in the screen. My stylus is kind of catching right there. Hang on. I'm just making sure that's not damaged and okay, no, there's nothing that's telling me that's the touchscreen. I think that's maybe just how I was holding that stylus or something. I don't like taking the feel of the touchscreen too seriously right now because I will be putting a screen protector on. So as long as all the inputs work, I can then worry about, well, once I put a touchscreen on, it changes the texture, so to speak. Next is speaker, microphone, and headphone jack, which I will combo with a SD card slot test. So I'll open up DSI sounds menu, slot in my SD card slot, or SD card, which has a song on it. Let me do the microphone first. So as I change the volume, the little level bar down there is responding, so the volume buttons work. La 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 la. Yep, volume microphone works. So reads the SD card, reads my song. I need to grab my headphones, so I'm gonna listen to both speaker channels, plug in my headphones, and listen to both earbuds. Right, everything works there. Before I get too far, I'm going to do what I sort of informally call the sleep disturbance test. I need to see if this console goes into sleep correctly and doesn't display any problems going into sleep. So I just have a magnet I'll put right next to the magnetically sensitive component right there. Usually it's the speaker magnet which triggers this. Screens go black. Comes back out of sleep when I remove the magnet. So console goes into sleep. And then what I need to do is an image retention test, which I can actually sort of explain because I'm going to sit on this menu for about 2 minutes. And what I'm going to be looking for is this checkered pattern specifically, and these two big buttons. So after about 2 minutes, I'll swap over to the settings menu and see if I can make out any of these elements in the settings menu. Some phenomena about these LCDs, I guess my best theory is as they age, they retain an image. I don't know if it's just because the liquid crystals are just getting older and drying out, maybe, perhaps, or they don't switch as fast. So when I move over to the settings menu, I can make out these elements almost similar to an OLED burn-in. It'll eventually go away, but the fact that it will persist for quite some time is very distracting and annoying, and I want to try and catch that if I can. So I'm going to write my little section in my notes. because I only performed this test once. The image retention. So why I did the sleep test is because I had one console where I think that little component had a busted solder joint. So when I put a magnet on it, the console was flickering in and out of sleep erratically. The screens were flashing and the speakers were popping. It was something I've never seen before, but it's something I want to catch because that's not something I would have ever caught without actually testing the sleep specifically. Because I usually don't do much with these consoles beyond these sort of clean room type tests. Like, I don't play games on them. I really don't need to. I cycle through so many consoles that it would be impossible. I don't really play many DS games anyway. So that's been about 2 minutes. Let's swap over the settings, see if I can make out any of those elements. Nope, I don't see anything. There is some shading to the left side of these buttons, but my understanding is that's normal. I've seen that on every console, and then I'll usually do soft resets to see if I can see any UI elements. I can see a little on the bottom, but to the best of my understanding, it's benign. But it's something I like to check anyway. Both cameras work. They display an image. The image is relatively clear relative to the Nintendo DSi, which, well, those cameras aren't the greatest anyway. Charge port next. I will USB charger plugged in. I'll plug in the charger. Indicator, both indicators are going off, and it is pulling amperage. I'll close the console and sort of jiggle the charge cable around, see if I can get that light to disappear. Which I cannot, so that tells me the charge port is good, as well as the solder joints for the charge port. Ah, okay. So next is the game card slot. This one I test very thoroughly, because I consider this one of the core features, along with the screens, so I want to make sure they have sort of the best chance out in the wild, so to speak. So I have a stack of 20 game cards. What I'll do is slot it in normally, see if it pops up. Then what I'll do is put my 2 fingers on it and shift it from side to side. There's a tiny bit of play in the game card, within the game card slot. See if it goes out. And then I'll also do some open hand slaps on the back of... I'm going a lot faster than I'm explaining. But for the game card, I shift it from side to side. I also put pressure on it until I hit the actual game card actuation point. Basically, I'm trying to make that card disappear from the menu. So when I'm shifting it from side to side, it's sort of pivoting on those internal pins. And sort of the idea is if you accidentally touched your game card while it's in your console, or you had your console in your backpack and something pushed against the game card, not ejecting it, but just sort of pushing it a little, it's not going to shut your console off. Because when any of these components, or if you're playing a game, you have your console in sleep and your game card disconnects, either your console will freeze or it'll just completely shut off. So I'm doing my best, basically, just doing what I can to try and get it to disconnect intentionally. And then for sort of my open palm slaps, hopefully that's sort of a little more realistic of a scenario where you're playing a game, maybe you set it on your lap or on a table. If your game card disconnects, like I was saying, while you're playing it, your console will shut off. It also catches if there's an issue with the battery. Like if the battery wasn't fully secure, maybe the battery door isn't on all the way, or if the battery is maybe bulging a little. If it loses contact for a second, and I could even pitch more scenarios of why the battery would disconnect, but if it does disconnect, obviously the console will turn off. So every time the game card has disappeared so far is because I've voluntarily ejected it, which is very, very good. So I basically am just pushing the game card down, shifting it from side to side all the way down until I eject, take the card out, put it back in, try it again. There's no real, like, protocol to how many times I do it. I do it like 2 or 3 times. I figure since I'm doing like 20 game cards that if there was a problem, I would be seeing it right now. I may just clean the game card slot just for kicks and giggles. It's a very benign procedure. And it can only really do good. Just the problem with having so many game cards is this takes a while. But I would rather be thorough than having to sort of pay the consequences of it later. I did kind of notice just the right side of this console is kind of... the shell isn't really meeting it. Like, you can kind of see the edge of that shell piece. It's not bulging. I think it just might be the angle I'm holding it at. Because I don't feel it. So I think that's just an awkward angle. I'm trying to figure out why I decided to put together a Japanese console. I think I just do that based on shell condition. I'm trying to use like all of my really good shaped shells first. Kind of the problem with DSi XLs. The OEM shells are very good, but sometimes they don't come to me in good shape. Third-party shells are just awful. Alright, it passes without a single issue, which is kind of amazing. So the only other test I have to clean the game card slot, I dribble some rubbing alcohol over the pins. I'm going to shut the console off to do this. And then just sort of take it in and out of the console, just sort of rubbing it against those pins. The only test I have left is the Wi-Fi slot, or the Wi-Fi, but I can't test that because my Wi-Fi network is too new, so my DSi can't connect, or this DSi can't connect to it, or any DSi I should say. But it can connect to the hotspot on my phone, but my phone is currently being used as a camera. I've never had a console fail, so I don't worry about it. That's something I test at the very end. But I am very pleased with the performance of this console. It gave me absolutely no troubles whatsoever. So other than the screen being a little redder than the top screen, or redder than the bottom screen, this console passes. I also put a check mark there for clearing the sleep and image retention. Coolio. Yeah, these videos go a lot shorter when I don't have to explain every single thing I'm doing. When I do the final testing protocol, I will go through that because I think that is valuable to whomever is wanting to purchase this console, but I think for these quick initial testing, I just need to kind of speed up my process a little. But nonetheless, I do think it's still valuable for me to sort of display everything I'm doing. So, on to the next console.